Hello everyone, welcome to another episode on Going Beyond the Obvious. Today I want to take you to Israel, from my office to Israel. I hope you will enjoy, you will be inspired, you will be motivated, you will learn, you will feel challenged, and you too will do something to transform this world. Yeah, some of my friends keep asking me why I have to talk about Israel. Almost every day, anytime I'm facilitating learning, I have to mention Israel. Why Israel? There is something so unique about Israel that I would really love to share about, because to some extent, where I am today, whatever I'm able to do today, most of the things I do them because of Israel. There is some background that I got from Israel that has really stuck in me, that has really made me look at things differently and do things differently. Before I went to Israel in 2016, I used to hear about the Israelites. I used to hear about Israel from the pastors in my church. So at one point when I was still young, there is a pastor who preached about when you bless Israel, you become blessed. So that thing really stuck in my mind. Then I kept on asking myself, how can I be a blessing to Israel? How? So the way God plans things, when I got employed at the Kenya Education Management Institute as a national lecturer, I happened to come across the Israelites when they came to Kenya at one point, because they were coming particularly to train trainers of trainers in Kenya on matters education for sustainable development, and also on matters pedagogy, innovative pedagogy. So it happened that in this class, I was only 2 months old at the institute. And when we went into the learning sessions with the Israelites, one of the facilitators, that is Judith Rosenthal, who is actually the director, the Aharon Center in Israel, came along with some facilitators. And I remember one of them was called Mikal, another one was called Eyal, and there was, Ariel came later. But I remember those three. So they took us through a very interesting, intensive program on education for sustainable development for 5 days as Kemi staff, because they were training us to be trainers of education for sustainable development. So in the process of learning, we were required to be very creative indeed, and as they gave us activities, I did them like, I decided to unlearn everything that I had known about training, everything that I had known about teaching. I was like, now I just want to learn and know how best I can be a better trainer. So in the process of doing the activities that we were given, I was doing them with a lot of passion and love and interest. And I realized that I can be a very good poet or artist. And in the process, Judith actually identified me. So they kept on saying that there are programs where Kenyans go to Israel to learn. So as we continued interacting, we became friends with the facilitators. And Judith told me, Christine, I would really love you to come to Israel so that you continue learning more, because I think there is something in you. And then another facilitator told me, you are a Lopita. Do you know Lopita? And I was like, yes, I know Lopita. Yes, the way you do things, you are a Lopita in this institution. There is a talent in you that has not been touched. So at one time when my director came to see what we were doing, she was so amazed. She said, Christine, I didn't know that you are this talented. So those 3 statements kept me thinking, like, you mean there is something else I can do? So it didn't take long. The year went. The following year, which was the year 2016, I received an invitation from Judith, and she told me to apply for the course that was going to be offered in Israel. So I applied, and my director recommended, and lucky enough, I was selected to be among the people to go to Israel to learn more about education for sustainable development. So it happened during that time. Our institution was actually struggling financially, and my director told me, I would really love you to go to Israel, but at the moment the institution does not have funds. And then I said, now, how do I go about this? Because if the institution is not going to support me, how am I going to manage alone? So I went to my family, I told my husband, and he was like, wow, what are they going to offer? I told him, they said they are going to give me accommodation, they will take care of everything in Israel. Even the trips around Israel, the learning is going to be free. So the only thing that I need is an air ticket. And how much does an air ticket cost? He said, we checked, it was around 100,000. Then he said, you'd rather just go, we sacrifice, you go and learn. You don't have to get an allowance from your institution if the institution doesn't have money. Let's just sacrifice and you go. So we started now looking for 100,000. By that time, 100,000 was really a lot of money, and we couldn't just get it at once. Even if you applied for a loan, it was going to take some days before that loan is given to you. So we thought, what are we going to do to get this money for the air ticket? So we took some of our savings. Imagine, savings are not supposed to be touched, but for this time, we kind of said, okay, this is still our money. You can make use of it. We took some of our savings, and some of my friends assisted me to raise the air ticket, the return ticket, and there I was ready to go. So all that I needed from my institution was an official leave, kind of permission to be away for 1 month, and that was granted. I was so happy that I was given leave to be away, to go and learn in Israel for 1 month. So I was ready, I prepared for the journey, I did all the necessary things, I looked for a passport. My visa was so easy to get because it was just about taking my passport to the embassy, and the embassy did all the other things to ensure that I have my visa ready. And the time for traveling came, and there I was. For the first time, I was taking a plane to go to Israel. Wow, it was such an interesting, amazing trip. Going through Ethiopia, stopping in Ethiopia for a while before we continued through Egypt down to Israel, to Tel Aviv. So when I got to Israel, the learning process started. As you can see, the background of my computer in my office is one of the interesting parts that really keeps me thinking about what I can do up to now. We were in a group and we were making a feeding trough for birds. And at the end of it, we were supposed to hang it on a tree to allow birds to come and feed from there. You can see these are my friends that are from East Africa, not just East Africa, from Africa. Sarit was from Lesotho. Caro was from, of course, Kenya, and myself, and then that was our Israel facilitator. I think if I've forgotten his name, he used to be called Ariel or something. So he took us through practical lessons using woodwork to enable us understand that by using your own hands, you can do things that you never thought that you can do. So as we went through the learning session, there are quite a number of things that I learned about Israel. And it so happens that Israel and Britain are the only countries that I have known who do not have a constitution, as in they don't have something like the law. Instead of the law, they have fundamental values that guide the way they do things, as in a way of agreement in which everybody knows that this is the way things need to be done. You know, that there is no constitution. And it has so happened that I'm very lucky that after Israel, I was also able to visit the Great Britain. And some of the things that I saw in Israel, I could really replicate and say, okay, even in Britain, this is what it is. So during the learning process, something just happened. And it made me start thinking like I was created for great things. It is not about what I have been thinking, but there is something more that I can do as an individual. Because some of the activities that we were taken through, they were meant to help you open up your mind, realize who you really are as an individual, realize that you can be a better person and you can do greater things than you imagine or you think about. I remember one of the activities we were given was to jump on one leg. But before we started jumping on one leg, the facilitator then was Eyal Block, asked us, how many times can you jump on one leg given 30 seconds? So all of us started giving their guesses. Then I was like, I can 30 seconds I can only jump once, you know, because in my mind I knew 30 seconds is really very little time. The person who said the highest number said 12. So the challenge came where we were supposed now to be given the 30 seconds and then we jump on one leg. So when we started jumping and jumping and jumping, can you imagine? Some of us went up to 120 times. Others went to 90, others went to 70, depending on the speed that you are jumping with. And you know what? I made 96 jumps from one. So it was not even 100%. It wasn't even, it was more than 100% the times I said I was going to jump. So that means the limitation is in the mind. That is what I learned, that limitation is in the mind, that we limit ourselves so much. Why? Because in our mind, we thought 30 seconds is very little. But when we started doing, we realized that we could do a lot within the 30 seconds that we were despising. So Israel taught me never to despise anything small, never to despise the little things that I can do as an individual. So in the process of learning, we learned about waste management, we learned about the culture of Israel, we learned about education in Israel. One thing I learned about Israel is that in Israel there is nothing private. that all institutions in Israel are public. All schools, all hospitals, there's nothing like this is a private property. No, even transport, the transportation system in Israel, very organized, that during weekdays everybody uses public transport. I mean, it is so nice because it makes the Israelites feel like they are one. The rich and the poor equally receive the same services. Like for schooling, you go to a school that is next to your home. So it doesn't matter whether you are rich or you are poor. You will all go to the same school. If it is about the hospital, you will all go to the same hospital. You know, it is such, I don't know when we will get there as a country. But it is so nice to learn that everybody is treated equally as a human being. And what the Israelites stand for so a lot is collaboration. They believe in doing things together. They believe in supporting one another. They believe in walking the journey together like that. So after the learning that we went through, because we were even taken through sessions where we could really interrogate ourselves, we could reflect into ourselves what we are, how we are doing things, why we are doing things. And at the end of the 3 weeks I was in Israel, the final challenge was, what are you going to do with the knowledge, with the skills, with the attitudes, with the values that you've acquired for the last 3 weeks you've been in Israel? So each one of us was supposed to give a promise of what they were going to do. So I was like, wow, this one is a challenge. Like now I want to promise, you know, in my mind, it is God's people. I want to promise God's people that I'm going to do this. What if I don't do it? So I was tongue-tied. I didn't know what to say. But when it got to my point, because it was one person after the other telling everybody in the room that when I go back to my country, when I go back to Kenya, this is what I'm going to do. So everybody said what they wanted to do. And when it came to my turn, okay, I was like, I am going to make a difference. I'm going to train other trainers. I'm going to train other people in Kenya. I will also help students in Kenya get to know about education for sustainable development. And I will also try to inform policy on what needs to do to ensure that our country also tries to do things the way they are being done in Israel. And then the question came, what exactly did you see in schools? So some of the things that I saw in schools was so inspiring, that it is the children who do most of the things, cleaning their classrooms, going to the garden, as in the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Education work together, that after the teachers have done their work, pedagogical work in class, they hand them over to the agricultural extension officers, so that the children can now go learn the concepts. For example, if it is mathematics they were learning, they go learn the same concepts in the farm. Yeah. Another thing that I will never forget is the psychology of touching the soil. That when you touch the soil, you are moving closer to God, as in you are connecting directly with God. So, and many other things. So after saying that and promising that I was going to carry a leaf and bring to my country, when I got to Kenya, I felt so challenged. I didn't know where to begin. But something told me, okay, there is somewhere you can always begin from. So when I realized that there is somewhere I could always begin from, I said, now how do I start? I have to get the blessings of my director. So that is where I began. I realized there was a room that was not being used. It was actually kind of, as in, it was depleted and it wasn't being used at all. It was a room that nobody ever had interest in. I went to the director and asked her if I could use that room, if I could improve that room so that it becomes like a demonstration place for education for sustainable development. Then I asked for the room. Then she asked me, Christine, are you sure you're going to make a difference using education for sustainable development in this institution? I told her, yes, Daktari, I will try my best. You know, with that, the innocence in me. I was like, I will try my best. Then she told me, so many of Kemi staff have been in Israel. Before you came here, I've taken quite a number of Kemi staff to Israel. And when they come back, I've never seen anything happening. You think there is something you're going to do? Then I told her, Daktari, just trust me. Give me the opportunity by giving me that room. So when I got the room, I approached some of my colleagues who had been to Israel. I asked them, what if we did this to transform this room? They were so excited. So we went there, we cleaned the room. I remember Mr. Wasike with the pipe, Madam Purity with the broom, sweeping the room, cleaning the room. We cleaned the room, literally lecturers. 5 of us cleaned the room thoroughly, and we now started setting it up. We were like, okay, this room can be used this way. So we made sure it's very clean. So after that, it was now a challenge. What then? After cleaning the room, what needs to be done? So after cleaning the room, I was like, now how is this room going to be used? Then I asked myself, what if I went to the neighboring school? Now that we don't have students in Kemi, if I went to the neighboring school and requested for some children so that I can teach them some bits of what I learned or what I saw in some schools in Israel. Then I asked the director again, what if I went to North High Ridge Primary School and talked to the head teacher there to allow us have some students to come and learn from Kemi? She said, it's okay. If it is in line with what you learned, go ahead. So the next thing I did was to go to North High Ridge and talk to the head teacher there. She was so excited. She was like, that looks interesting. I will give you standard 7 girls and boys after talking to their parents. So because I'd explained the concept that it will require the children to start working using their own hands, to start doing chores, and so on and so forth. So during our parents' meeting, she called me. I explained to the parents what it is. So those children who were interested carried up their hands, and I had a team of 20 children, imagine. So we started with them. We came, they used to come to Kemi on Wednesday evening and on Saturday. So I used to dedicate my time to be with them, to learn with them, and to work with them. So we could clean, we could really do community service within Kemi, cleaning the pavements to ensure that every part that was left untidy was now tidy and clean. We did so much with those children. I will never forget the kind of sacrifice they made. Unfortunately, when they got to standard 8, it was demanding that they concentrate in their studies, and somehow that is how they went back to school, and they could not get time to come over to Kemi. But I had started now. The journey had started, and some of my colleagues found the reason to join me so that we moved together. So at the end of that year, the following year, the director went to another institution, and we got a new director. Apparently, this new director again was an alumni of Mashav. You know, Mashav is the organization in Israel that deals with international studies. Yeah, it's in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where Judith Rosenthal is the director. So this new director was an alumni of Mashav. Now, when I told her about what I'm doing in education for sustainable development, she said, okay, we can still continue. But this time, I think there is the other block down there that is not in use. What if you used that block? Then I told her, in actual sense, Madam, when the Israelites came here, they spotted that place, and somehow the director had indicated that that was going to be the model center for education for sustainable development. Then she said, okay, go and make use of that space. So I had to transfer everything that we had done from the old room to the other room. And we went there with my colleagues, the entire staff. We had an open day for ESD. Everybody was coming out to be creative. We did so many things in that room. We organized the room. People drew things, artwork and everything, and it was transformed. The room was transformed. Then after that, we sat together. We sat with the new director, that is Madam Grace Ngasha, and we really thought around what can we do then to impact on schools, because this knowledge we've received from Israel, it shouldn't end here. It shouldn't end with us. It shouldn't end with Kemi being a model center. So what? You're a model center, so what, Christine? Then I started thinking. Then I said, Madam, what if we brought on board some schools and trained them about education for sustainable development so that they can be model centers in their counties. That was a great idea. The director bought that idea very fast, and she started thinking about it. And she thought about it deeply, and finally a thought was born that every county in Kenya should have a model center for education for sustainable development. Wow, that was brilliant. So we invited, we wrote letters to the county directors of education and came up with a criteria with a team from my institution that would inform the county directors of education the kind of schools that we are looking for. That they don't have to be schools that are really very highly recognized, but schools that are making a difference in a small way within the county. So every county director of education was able to give us a school, and there was that consent from the principal or the head teacher that they would love their school to be part of the system, part of the fellowship, part of the program of ESD in Kenya. So we started with, we actually started with 13 counties. We started with 13 schools where we invited the director, the county director of education, or his representative or her representative. Then from the school, the principal or the deputy was welcome. Then there was a BOM member, there was a parent, there was a support staff member, and we had 2 learners. And we also had a teacher who was going to act as the focal teacher for education for sustainable development. So in essence, from every institution, we were having like at least 7 members. So when they came to Kemi, we trained them for 1 week so that they understand what exactly education for sustainable development is. When we took them through, they realized there are some things they were doing in their schools that could really be improved to be education, to fit into the category of education for sustainable development activities. And we were actually using the whole school approach. That is why we were picking at least a representative from every category of the school stakeholders, so that when these representatives go back, they will be able now to have the buy-in of the various groups for the whole school to be part of the system. So the schools we started with are really doing well so far. We can't complain, because the way we introduced education for sustainable development to them is the same way the concept was introduced to us. When ESG was introduced to us, we were told the Israelites will teach you how to fish and not give you fish. What does that mean? That they will not give you money, because if they give you money, you will make use of that money and it will be over. But they will teach you how to fish. Yeah, they will teach you how to make the money by giving you the tools of work, by giving you the skills, by giving you the knowledge, and helping you to have the right attitude towards what you're doing. And so that is what we started taking out to schools, that we will not give you fish, but we will help you to know how to fish. I am today because from there, the Embassy of Israel came to recognize that I am actually doing something, of course, with my institution, that is KEMI, with the support of my directors and my colleagues. And because I was the lead in education for sustainable development and I never got tired, I kept on moving. I believed in always going beyond intention. When I have an idea, I don't just say I'm going to do this. I keep doing. I go beyond and act. I do it. So that has actually brought the difference that I'm talking about at the moment. When I look at Israel and the things they've done to me, for example, believe me, every year I receive an envelope from the Embassy of Israel. And guess what? What is in this envelope? Yeah, what is usually in these envelopes? If it is Christmas, I will always receive Christmas cards. Yeah, if it is beginning of the year, I will always receive books. Yeah, books, notebooks. I will always receive calendars every year. Yeah, this one is for this year. Look the way it is really beautiful. And the calendars and the books that the notebooks I receive, I usually receive about 5. So I'm able to share with my director, my deputy directors, and some of my colleagues in the institution. So that is one way I get blessed from Israel. And in the year 2018, yes, it was the year 2018, I actually got blessed by being identified by Israel as a government to go to Britain, that is the Great Britain, to represent Mashav in a Limud festival. And guess what? This is a festival for the Jews. And in that particular festival, basically most of them were Jews. So when I got to to Britain, I was actually a guest of the Embassy of Israel in London, in Britain. And I was treated so, hey, I can't forget. Oh my God, that experience. You are treated like a very important person in the world. You know, being taken from one place to another with escort, and you know, it was, wow, it was just so humbling that apart from just going to the Limud festival to go and present to the people who had come for that conference on what I am doing in Kenya on education for sustainable development, that I was also supposed to represent Mashav as a whole. I was supposed to represent East Africa. I was supposed to represent Kenya. You know, it was so humbling. And then I was again invited in the course of my going to Israel. I was invited to go and officiate. Imagine, officiate a memorandum of understanding between the Africans in Britain and Israel. You know, it was like, how no? Yeah, and that happened. I did that. I officiated that. And And when I came back to Kenya during the COVID season, that is in 2019, we organized something to help the people in the slum. We came up with this slogan, I Speak, I Stand with Kenya, with my friends and some of the alumni of Mashav. And we were able to feed quite a number of people in Isli with the Israel Embassy and others across the slums in Kibera and so on and so forth. You know, there's so much that I can say about Israel, and I believe by being a blessing to Israel, God is blessing me. I can see things happening in my life, one after the other, because I have not given up. Because I know by being a blessing to Israel, God is blessing me. God is blessing me. And for sure, the things that I'm able to do, they are quite a lot, because I've been able to train over 1,000, I'm telling you, over 1,000 educators on matters education for sustainable development. When the national NATCOM, the National Commission for UNESCO in Kenya, got to notice what I'm capable of doing and the way I facilitate learning in education for sustainable development, they started inviting me to go and support them to build the capacity of educators across the country. So since we started in 2017, we've been able to train all regional directors of education in Kenya, the county directors of education in Kenya, the vice chancellors and their deputies, deputy vice chancellors, the deans of universities in Kenya. We have trained the TVET deans, HODs. We have trained school heads. We have trained school, both secondary and primary head teachers and principals, those that have been selected for schools that are known as Aspinet schools. These are schools that do a program with UNESCO on peace education. In essence, I have been able to train over 1,000 educators on matters education for sustainable development. And when it comes to Kemi, we have trained over three. The first cohort we did 187. The second cohort we did 200. The third cohort we did over 300 leaders, because we were training online. And in total, we've also done over 1,000 educators. We've trained over 1,000 educators. So if I look at my statistics, we have done over 2,000 educators being trained on education for sustainable development. And I believe if each one of them went ahead to do what we told them to do, having the ripple effect, going out to train others and others training others, we will eventually have a country that is embracing education for sustainable development in our learning institutions and in our communities. And that does not end there. It is not all about telling others to do. It's not. Oh no, it's not. Because the best way to facilitate learning is to practice what you want people to do, so that you see the effect before you encourage others to do it. So personally, I am practicing the things that I tell other people to practice doing. Like in my own home, I have made use of most of the skills that I learned in Israel and that I'm continuously learning, because learning does not stop. Learning does not happen just once. As I continue learning, I discover more things that we need to do in education for sustainable development, so I do them in my home. For example, what do I do in my home? I have created an environment where birds can feed from. I've put trays around the trees in my home for birds to just come and feed from there. I have also used waste. I have reused waste, like the waste tires that I get from my car. What do I do with them? I use them to make nice flower beds. Yeah, I make nice flower vessels, nice flower gardens, and as well as holders for my herbal gardens, and so on and so forth. So I have beautified my home nicely using the waste tires from my own car and also from other people's cars, because other people probably, some of them just throw them away because they don't know yet how to make use of them. Although I have tried to sensitize some of them how best to make use of waste tires. I have also come up with a system of separating waste in my house. It is interesting that even my little baby boy will always remind you, Mommy, you need to separate. You said we are going to reuse. You know, it's so interesting that the culture is now also getting into my children, that anytime they have waste, they have to separate. That one goes to this waste bin, this one goes to this waste bin, and this one goes to this waste bin. Why? Because this one can decompose, so it will be taken to the compost pit for it to be recycled to be used in the garden. We have a kitchen garden where we have planted our vegetables, and not just vegetables, yeah. We are talking about indigenous vegetables: terere, managu, saga, derema, kunde, you know. Those are terms that we use locally here in Kenya. So I have those vegetables, and guess what? I'm talking about my compound in Nairobi. And this is a compound that I inherited that was so, I don't know. I was told nothing can grow there. But when I started doing the small things I started doing, I'm able to feed my family from that small garden. I also have a banana. I've planted a banana there, which I believe in a few months now, it's going to start giving us the fruits. Beyond that, I also rear chicken. Yeah, I have come up with a chicken house where now I rear chicken, and the droplets from the chicken, I put them together and decompose them again for them to be organic manure for my garden. So that is how I have made use of the knowledge that I teach other people to do. And in my home, everybody works. Everybody does household chores, literally everybody, yeah. And then and it's not like that they are being forced, but because it is now becoming a culture in my house that when you have used your plate, you don't leave it on the table, you can take it to the kitchen and wash it. You know, everybody knows that this is the right thing to do, so let me do it. I don't have to wait for somebody else to come and do it. And beyond that, we also keep animals, like we have a cat and we also have dogs. Why? Because we believe in coexistence. The ecosystem, as in living with other beings, it really makes life so beautiful. When you see the birds there, at some point you can get the monkeys just come to play around, to play within our compound, where we have created a very nice garden, or a recreational garden. So you can find the monkeys there, so we give them bananas and they enjoy. You know, it's such a beautiful scene that I really thank God because of Israel. I want to say that Israel has made me do things that I never thought I could do. And it takes me back to the Word of God, because the Bible tells me that I will show you great and mighty things that you have never even ever thought about. Never in my life had I ever thought of taking a plane to Israel. No, I will be cheating. Never in my life had I ever thought of taking a plane to England. No, I will be cheating. And many other things that have happened in my life. And so I want to encourage everybody listening to me that you can still make a difference. The moment you learn something, the best thing you can do is to try to practice doing. Yeah? Doing is as greater learning than just learning. When you do, you learn even more. You learn new ways of doing it better. You learn new ways of improving it. And that is the only way we can make a difference. Going beyond the obvious is my motto. Going beyond the obvious is my mantra. So in everything that I do, because of the inspiration that I usually get from my mentors in Israel, and I'm so proud to inform everybody in the world that the mentor that I will attribute everything to in what I am doing currently. Okay, I have many mentors, but this one mentor called Judith Rosenthal, she is always following. She's always asking me, what are you doing? How did you do this? Before I send anything out, I have to show her. She has to approve. You know, she's like, okay, do this, correct this, try to do this, try, you know, she's always there for me. For many years now, we have been friends. She has been there for me. She wants me to do things the right way. When she realizes that I've made a mistake, she will always make an appointment and tell me, Christine, I want to talk to you at 5, you know, your time in Kenya. So at 5, I will always wait for her video call. And when we talk, I really feel like I am indebted. I'm indebted to the people of Kenya. I'm indebted to the people in the world to do exactly what my mentor is doing. I have so many people who look up to me as their mentor. I wish I could do exactly what Judith does to me. I have been trying, of course, to mentor a few. I try my best, but I've not reached that level. I believe one day I will be like Judith Rosenthal, my mentor. Thank you very much.